Right, let's bring you some breaking news that is reaching us in the last few minutes regards the Manchester United interim head coach role. We know it's between Michael Carrick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Rob Dorset has an update for us.
It's pretty clear to me now that Michael Carrick is the front runner to take over at Manchester United as interim head coach until the end of the season. Although Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is still very much an option for United's bosses, and they have made no final decision as things stand. But it's been explained to me that Jason Wilcox, United's director of football, plans further detailed discussions with Michael Carrick and his representatives today, and there are no such meetings planned with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer right now. I think that tells you everything you need to know about where United want to go with this, but still a lot to sort out. No contractual detail has been discussed or agreed, and I think Wilcox will want to discuss with Carrick in more detail exactly who he wants alongside him in this role, who will be part of his coaching setup. I think it's looking increasingly unlikely that Solskjaer will be involved in that. But what about Darren Fletcher, who's been in the caretaker interim role for the last 2 matches and who doesn't know yet whether he's going back to his substantive job with Manchester United's under-18s or whether he's got a role to play in the new setup. So I think the next 24 hours will be important for Manchester United and for Michael Carrick as they try to drill down and work out exactly how his new role will work and whether they can reach an agreement. But detailed discussions today to that end, as I understand it.
So there we go. Michael Carrick now in pole position to take the job for the remainder of the season as an interim boss at Old Trafford. More talks planned between Michael Carrick and his representatives at Manchester United today. Stephen Kelly, is that the right move? And look, the cynical view that I'll put across to you here, just playing devil's advocate, why are Manchester United interviewing for interims? Well, should that not have all just been done behind the scenes? And look, this is who we're going to go with. And then obviously they make the big call in the summer for the new guy coming in.
It does seem ridiculous. And it feels like the only reason they're doing it, and I'm just talking to Bridgie here about it, that is the fact that Wilcox wasn't there when Carrick and Solskjaer were there before. So it's like him getting the feel of those managers coming in to whether they can work together. Because obviously him and Amarim weren't, but if they can work together for the next few months and if there's a cohesion there to go forward. But it seems ridiculous. You just be like, we know the person we want to take over from now at the end of the season, and then we're looking at the bigger picture of those managers that we actually want to get in. But an interim manager, I don't understand what the discussions are. Like, they're not going to have much power in the buyings, the sellings. You know, I wouldn't have thought that's part of the contract. I would have thought they're going to come in to take care of the job between now and the summer, keep them steady, progress in the league if they can. And then whether or not, if they've done well, if they're trying to put something into their contract that potentially they could take over if they've done something extraordinary like Solskjaer did before, it's hard to know.
Well, we already know it's going to be another trophyless season for Manchester United because they're out of all cup competitions thanks to Grimsby and, of course, Brighton and Danny Welbeck, their former striker, yesterday. So here's the question. Do they have a big call to make, do you think, Stephen, now in terms of speaking to Michael Carrick behind the scenes and saying, no matter what you do, you're not going to get this job. Just don't get your hopes up. You're here as an interim. What if they are in a situation then where, bearing in mind looking at the Premier League table, they're only 3 points off fourth place Liverpool right now. Say Michael Carrick does get them into a Champions League spot. There'll be a clamour again. Give it like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Give it to him permanently.
Yeah, that is 100% what's going to happen. If he comes in and gets them Champions League football, that's everything they could possibly ask for from a manager, any manager, between now and this season. If that was any of the top names you're talking about, if they came in and secured Champions League, that's a success for Manchester United. So how then do you have the conversation where you're guaranteeing that they're going to go? And that's maybe what the discussion is.
Yeah, I keep hearing that United season's over. What nonsense. I mean, like, can still finish in the Champions League. Yes, they're not going to win anything, and that's still hard for Manchester United fans, and it's always a big story.
That I don't know, aren't they? No,
but they could finish in the Champions League places.
Yeah.
So,
and fifth could be a Champions League.
Well, it probably will. Probably will, because Europe, England are pretty much dominate. You know, Palace should be favourites for the Conference League. Villa, I would expect them to go really far in the Europa League and Champions League. The teams are doing well. So, yeah, it should be.
So if we're saying that, by the way, right now, and I know it's very early doors with 21 games gone, but they're only a point off fifth place. So all to play for.
Exactly.
But in terms of the runners and the riders long term, there will be plenty of names for the heir to the throne that was Amarim.
Well, we have our transfer shows, and everyone loves our transfer shows, but we could have some manager transfer shows in June, Will. Honestly, we'll be here in June with the manager transfer rap. You know, because we'll have possibly Thomas
that was catchy, that was it?
Yeah, I know, yeah. Well, we'll think of another one.
Rap.
But we've got
something a bit more.
Thomas Tuchel, Oliver Glasner, Marcus Silva's potential contract, Antonio Raya. It's a lot of...
You say Tuchel?
Tuchel after England, possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a lot... Pochettino. There's going to be a lot of big names.
Anyhow, according to Roy Keane.
Well, there's going to be a lot of big names available. But as Stephen said, if Manchester United do qualify for the Champions League, then it's an issue.
So, look, take us inside what you think is how Manchester United are operating right now with Jason Wilcox, okay, with Omar Barada, both former Manchester City, and look, we haven't even mentioned Enzo Maresca's name as well, and I know they are very fond of him in terms of his time at Manchester City. And then you have Christopher Vivella in terms of head of recruitment. So will they want someone like Carlo Ancelotti, for example, after the World Cup with Brazil? Would they want someone who might upset the apple cart a little bit in Thomas Tuchel, or do they want someone to work very specifically within a structure as a head coach?
Well, it seems like with the people that are in charge that they want someone that's going to come in and toe the line, potentially, that's going to come in and be a head coach and organise things. Like Amran got sacked for saying he was the manager, basically. And that obviously upset the board, upset the people above him, because they said, no, we're in charge of off-field dealings. You can have a say, but you're not the final line in that.
But I don't get the feeling that someone like Marco Silva, Oliver Glasner, Thomas Tuchel, Carlo Ancelotti are going to accept that sort of role.
No, I don't. I think they want to have more power. But like, as an outsider looking in and looking at Manchester United and the way they are, the noise that comes from Manchester United is huge. Like, there's not many managers that can handle that sort of pressure or outside noise or the sense of expectation, even though there should be none at the moment. But the sense of expectation within that club, but outside that club, is enormous. So someone like an Ancelotti, who just seems to let stuff like that fall off his shoulders, never seems fazed, looks like he might be the perfect fit for someone like that. After Brazil, obviously, but that's a long time to come. And if he was successful for Brazil in the World Cup, then do you want to go to Manchester United, who won't even play Champions League? Well, potentially might not be changing Champions League football.
There we go. Like Stephen Kelly said, they're not going to qualify for the Champions League. You hear that? It's got them outside the top 5 spots.
Yeah, Man United is Man United, so I'm very positive about the future. So they will come back. They will come back. So at the moment we are in a bad situation, but I think we're going to turn out.
Just quickly, Fletcher's obviously in charge. There's going to be an interim to come into the end of the season. It looks like it could be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or Michael Carrick. Who do you think should come in, and do you have any thoughts on who the next manager?
The Man United is a big club, one of the biggest of the world. You need a coach with a personality, with good knowledge to change the game. So who get the job, he needs to do the job on the right way. So I hope if it's Fletcher or Carrick or anyone, I just wish them a good luck and then they can do the job.
To Manchester United, and their chances of picking up silverware were all but ended with defeat to Brighton in the FA Cup, and talks are set to accelerate over the next 24 to 48 hours over hiring either Michael Carrick or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as interim head coach until the end of the season.
I've had zero indication, and because all my energy and focus and concentrations had to be on these two games in such a quick turnaround and preparing the team, a 3-game week, everything that I said. So, and I genuinely mean that. It's a massive responsibility to lead this club, and I've given it my best. It's not about a manager, it's not about directors, it's about everyone, and the players have to group together, take responsibility, find a way of, improving quickly and taking on the challenge for the rest of the season. Don't waste the season.
OK, well, we have football correspondent Rob Dorset joining us now. Very good morning to you, Rob. Look, could we see an appointment before the weekend? How likely is that?
I think it's very likely. And in fact, I think the next 24 to 36 hours, I think will shape the interim head coach position at Manchester United. I think by the end of play on Tuesday, I think we will know who Manchester United's head coach is for the remainder of the season. As I've had it explained to me, United's bosses are accelerating the process right now. I think that they wanted to get the FA Cup tie against Brighton out of the way. They didn't want distractions from that. And Director of Football Jason Wilcox, who is leading the search for the interim manager, was helping Darren Fletcher a lot. And I don't think the club wanted any distractions from that match yesterday. Now that game has been and gone, and United know they've only got the Premier League to focus on, remember, I think that the entire focus at the club now is on appointing an interim manager. And it is a straight choice between Michael Carrick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Both men have now met with Manchester United's hierarchy. They've done that over the last few days. But I'm told that further discussions are planned with Michael Carrick in particular today. I haven't been told whether there are any talks due with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Read into that what you will. Nobody is telling us anything specific on that at the moment. But what I do know is that man in your picture, Michael Carrick, very much impressed Jason Wilcox and the other Manchester United bosses with his plans and the pitch that he made for the job until the end of the season. Although, of course, there is an awareness as well of just how popular Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is with supporters, and they know him very, very well from the job that he did in his previous stint as interim head coach. So Carrick definitely having more talks today. Solskjaer we're not so sure of, but I'd expect Manchester United to make a decision between those two in the next 24 to 36 hours.
And look, what does it mean for now? Darren Fletcher, could he continue as part of a setup? You're kind of wondering how he's feeling and what he's been told as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, these are the discussions that are still ongoing and the things that Manchester United's bosses are still assessing. I think now that game has finished, they'll fully take stock of Darren Fletcher's role. And it isn't clear yet whether he will have a role to play in the coaching setup under the new interim head coach. It is possible, of course, that he goes back to his substantive job, which is as Manchester United's under-18s head coach. He's the only one of the three that we're talking about here who's already employed by Manchester United in a full-time role. So Fletcher said to us after the game yesterday that his plan is to go into Carrington's training ground first thing this morning and talk to his bosses and find out what they want for him next. I think for all of these people, it feels like an awful lot is up in the air at the moment. But from Manchester United's perspective, I think a lot will be answered in the next 24 to 36 hours.
So, Crookie, what's the latest on the interim to replace the interim Man United? I mean, you must be in the frame. You've beaten the Man United game, so you're probably a contender.
Well, I get the club, Jeff, and that seems to be first and foremost the priority. It's madness, really, isn't it, when you're talking about a club of the size and stature of Manchester United seemingly fired Ruben Amorim with no real plan of what they would do in the immediate aftermath. The fact they're talking about a second interim manager, a third manager of the season, it is a little bit bonkers, but it does seem like the direction of travel now is Michael Carrick. Halfway through last week, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer certainly felt he was the favourite to make a sensational return to the dugout. But as we broke on TalkSport last night, Carrick, I think now is seen as the front runner. There should be a final decision made today that the players, I believe, have got a day off. They're back at training tomorrow to start preparation for that Manchester derby live on TalkSport. And you would have thought that Ineos would want the new man in place by then. I think Carrick makes more sense than Solskjaer to me because, yes, Solskjaer gave an immediate uplift when he came in as caretaker manager, but he did benefit from a favourable run of fixtures in that time. Obviously, once he got the job permanently, it very quickly unravelled, and I was at Watford for TalkSport when it really turned quite sour after a 4-1 defeat there in his final game in charge. He was booed by the away supporters. So I think there has been a little bit of revisionism in terms of people clamouring for Ollie to return. You look at Michael Carrick, he only had 3 games in interim charge, but he won 2 of them. He got United into the knockout stages of the Champions League. He beat Arsenal at home. Then he went to Middlesbrough, Jeff. They were 21st in the table when he took over, ended up finishing 4th and making the playoffs in his first season. Yes, the league positions dipped a bit after that, 8th and 10th in his last 2 seasons, but he would argue, I think, that he was working with one hand tied behind his back in terms of big name players being sold from under him. So I do think Michael Carrick is a safe pair of hands and the sensible option if you're going down the club legend route. But he's going to need some help. You saw it yesterday. That wasn't a fluke that Brighton knocked United out of the FA Cup. It was more comfortable than the 2-1 scoreline suggested in the end. There were some players there like Ugarte and Dorgu who absolutely stunk the place out. And I think he needs numbers in this transfer window. Whether Ineos will back him, I think actually bringing in an interim gives them a convenient excuse not to spend money in this window. And it's going to be very difficult to achieve the objective of qualifying for Europe with this squad. But I've got to salute Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada. Manchester United out of both cup competitions. The earliest that's happened since the 81-82 seasons. They're only going to play 40 games in all competitions. That'll be the fewest number for more than 100 years. So Sir Jim Ratcliffe, when he came in, said he wanted to take Manchester United back to where they belong. He's taking the club backwards at the moment.
Tell me how Michael Carrick as an interim is a better option than Darren Fletcher as an interim. Because if we've established the fact that he's an interim, What if he does go on a good run and all of a sudden gets Champions League football? Does that not give them another problem?
Well, I think that's a key part of it, actually, Ollie, because Ali, because when we were reporting last week that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the favourite, his camp were making it known that actually if he did well in this interim spell, he had his sights set on the permanent job, and I think that made a few in the boardroom uneasy because they do see this very much as an interim appointment until the end of the season when they hope that one of those big name managers who are available, Thomas Tuchel, Mauricio Pochettino, Oliver Glasner, Carlo Ancelotti even, would be tempted to take the job. So I think Carrick will know the remit. It is very much an appointment until the end of the season. I get what you're saying because that's exactly what happened with Ollie.
Yeah.
He came in as interim, did really well. Club legends like Rio Ferdinand and Gary Neville were clamouring for 10-year contracts and asking where he wanted his start to. But I think Michael Carrick is aware of the situation. In terms of Darren Fletcher, I feel a little bit for him, but ultimately he's drawn away at Burnley and he's got United knocked out the FA Cup. So I don't really see how he can put forward a case to be given a job on a longer term basis.